All right, welcome everyone again to another MakerDAO Collateral call. My name is Juan and I'm here joined by a bunch of people interested in a way or another by Maker. And yeah, in this case, how to produce more DAI. So today with me, I have Kevin that has proposed the MIP6 application for SNX. And also Kane is here from Synthetix. So he'll be here to answer any questions if we have any. So yeah, feel free to interrupt at any point. And yeah, go ahead. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to start explaining what SNX is.
Yeah. Well, Synthetix allows users to mint SUSD against the Synthetix collateral token, sort of like in the beginning of these sort of like stablecoin projects and these sort of debt projects. Maker and Synthetix are kind of not quite opposite, but distinctly different approaches in that Maker's idea was to let you, lock anything but Maker, and Maker's strictly a governance token, whereas Synthetix lets you lock Synthetix, the collateral token. So you create SUSD, which you can create a fifth of the value of your Synthetix collateral. And from this, instead of like this is a loan, right? And instead of an interest rate like Maker would charge, right? And the DAO votes on what the interest rate is, you have to back a proportional share of all synths. So a good way of looking at this is the Synthetix dashboard. Look at this a lot. So you can see the synth dominance. This is essentially what you are backing when you mint SUSD with Synthetix. So right now, it's 35% SUSD, 24% SETH, 24% SBTC, 5% everything else that is too small to mention, 5% euros, 4% IETH, and 3% IBTC. So in sort of the life cycle of like synths, all synthetic value, I think, all starts out as minted SUSD, which is then sold to people who are interested in holding synths. So this is done on like the depot, where people can just buy SUSD for $1. It's on Uniswap, and it's the biggest liquidity hub right now is on Curve. You've got SUSD paired with USDC DAI and USDT. So stakers create SUSD and allow traders to enter the Synthetix ecosystem, right? And sort of the novel idea here is that one of the biggest problems in DeFi is sort of the long tail liquidity problem, as I'd call it, where as soon as you start supporting trading between multiple assets, the liquidity dries up pretty quickly. So if on an exchange, the more different assets you support, you'll have some liquidity for the top, 3 or 4 assets. But as it goes down, you have almost no liquidity for the pairs. So Synthetix has sort of the, I'd say, I guess, brilliant innovation of saying, all right, we're just going to get rid of all that. We don't require people to supply, liquidity in these specific assets. The LPs don't decide what kind of LP they're providing. The traders decide what kind of liquidity they want. And I guess at first that like sounds a little bit scary, but you'd have to remember that as a Synthetix staker, you also hold synths, so you can trade between synths yourself and hedge against this debt, right? So this all takes place with the Synthetix like infinite liquidity mechanism, which is where as a holder of SUSD, you can trade it with the Synthetix exchange, which is just a contract that when you make the trade on demand, burns the assets that you send it and creates the assets that you want from it. So if you buy one SBTC with SUSD, when you send it the SUSD, it destroys that SUSD and creates that SBTC, right? So how do we know that like it stays collateralized? Well, like we
Kevin,
said, all
just one question. One question to understand the process. So if I want to get, let's say today I want to get an SUSD potentially, what's the process? What do I stake where, or do I need to buy SNX in the market?
do
How's it
you want
work?
to be a staker or do you want to be a holder,
Let's start with holder and then let's go to staker.
right? So if you're a
You'd
holder,
probably,
you just
you'd probably just swap DAI in Curve. You know, just take, you know, a few hundred DAI, swap it into SUSD on Curve, and then you could start to trade.
Good. And so potentially to mint this SUSD, you do need SNX to back this this token then.
yeah, all SUSD and all synths are backed by currently 500% of their value in SNX. And
Makes
sort of
sense.
the core innovation to this, or the core new idea that I see, is that it moves the liquidity issue away from all these intermediary like trades
Mhm.
into just entering and exiting the Synthetix ecosystem. So all that has to be done is like stabilizing sort of key assets like SETH and SUSD against ETH and other stable coins. And then once you're in the ecosystem, you don't have any liquidity problems. Right. And so it removes that kind of fractionalized liquidity issue by saying, all right, we can just concentrate on these like 2 or 3 top assets that people use to enter and exit the system.
Makes sense. I don't know if you know about this, Kevin, or we need to make Kane speak. How do you guys solve the oracles issue? Like, what are you using and how do you use it?
Yeah, so
I
we
believe
use
they use
Chainlink.
Chainlink.
Yeah, we use Chainlink oracles. Yeah.
That's good. And yeah, I don't know if anyone has any more questions about Synthetix, or we should go to the MIP6 application already. All right.
Yeah,
I guess we can. Thanks.
that's about what it is. I propose both onboarding Synthetix token itself, as well as SUSD. There are kind of different considerations for each of them. For Synthetix, I'd say the strength is that it's like very liquid, very large market cap, supported on like many exchanges. You know, it's as liquid as Maker, right? A big market cap as Maker. It's, I think, above and beyond any other, like in terms of a lot of the assets, or several of the assets that have been added as DAI collateral recently, Synthetix is like much stronger of a collateral. I think also Synthetix is innately a collateral backing token, right? So in its native environment, it is used as collateral, right? So this sort of, but in a slightly different way, as I mentioned, right? So this sort of adds a different use for Synthetix, right? And sort of, I think they are synergistic, right? It's good to allow people to be able to take out loans that are not backed by, you know, the interest at the Synthetix exchange if they want. And at the same time, I think it adds to the like the use of Synthetix as backing synths, which do change dynamically, adds to the strength as a DAI collateral, right? Sort of in that point at the end, right? It's like people will want this token because they have this other strong use for it. Then looking at the SUSD application, it is less liquid than Synthetix, right? Smaller market cap, but I think a lot of the value in this is that it is a stable coin, right? So it will behave much like USDC, where the value isn't going to fluctuate that much. You don't have to have a super high over collateralization ratio. There's not going to be a lot of auctions for it, right? Because its value shouldn't fluctuate too much. And at the end of the day, SUSD is backed 500% by Synthetix. So it's got pretty deep, I'd say, value there. And yeah, SUSD has like a ton of liquidity on Curve. It's also sort of growing in the DeFi ecosystem with the pools on Aave growing. Yeah.
David raises a good point on the chat, saying that he's curious to see what the risk assessment will be. So potentially, if everything's being backed by the SNX token, then well, just a drop in that token would potentially trigger several liquidations on the system. I don't know if there's any mechanisms to prevent that.
So I think Synthetix does have a liquidation mechanism itself when you get down to 200% over collateralization, so low, right? Then you get, I think, liquidated within like 3 days or so, or it might be even faster now. And then again, it's like, as far as I've noticed, like, so the sort of expected value of staking Synthetix without doing any other hedging goes up when the market's in a downturn, because like your debt is going to be decreasing, right? And sort of similarly, when the market's in a downturn, people end up trading, right? People trade a lot to get in and out of positions because they get spooked. And sort of, okay, in addition to debt backing, holding Synthetix or staking Synthetix gives you the revenues of the Synthetix exchange, right? So sort of the key like profit expectation of a Synthetix staker is that everyone who is trading between synths, in exchange for the wonderful features of the infinite liquidity and not having to deal with slippage, you pay a 0.3% fee, and this fee goes to stakers, right? So essentially, when the market is in a downturn, the trading fees generally go up, right? As well as the debt is going down. So when the price of Synthetix goes down, usually, correlated to the rest of the market, suddenly it becomes much more valuable to stake, right? Because your sort of APY from staking goes way up, right? So like if you just look at various like market conditions, you can see the token being stabilized or even going up, like compared to many other tokens, just because, right? Oh, if it's like 30% off, that's like a much better APY on the exchange returns. And then the exchange profits also go up because more people are trading in this downturn.
Nice. Tim asks in the, well, I don't know if you want to, if you have a mic, Tim, or I can read it. I feel bad reading all.
I have a couple of ideas. It's all good. I'm here. I got video back. So I don't know if it's more appropriate to talk about SUSD or SNX. So I'll start with SNX, considering we're sort of there before. So like, if you really think about it, like MakerDAO created the first synthetic, right? The synthetic is DAI. And so like, if people are using SNX inside of the Maker system, the primary use case would be leverage. They're going to get DAI and go buy it somewhere else, right? Is that the sort of assumption? Or use it somewhere else? Like,
well, so I think the situation we have now with the current SNX market structure is, it is a deeply liquid token. It's got a large market cap, but in order to get any leverage on it, other than maybe through Aave, you have to participate in the debt pool. And so I think the ability to not have to participate in the debt pool and just be able to use it in Maker as a form of collateral and borrow against it would be, pretty beneficial on both sides, because, it's one of the largest cap ERC20 tokens out there now.
Cool. Yeah, that was a perfectly articulate answer to the question I was trying to ask. I appreciate that. The follow-up was the collateralization ratio with the recommendation to be like match the same liquidation risk for stakers. If you're basically like, I'm an SNX person, I want to stake on which one am I going to choose, which is a healthier relationship to have.
Yeah, so I think again, like structurally, there's some issues with liquidations on Synthetix right now. So we can't liquidate escrowed tokens, but they can be used as collateral. So that's one reason why we have a very high collateralization ratio. I think there's also kind of systemic risk to having a lower collateralization ratio that you could have like cascading liquidations. I think that's less of a concern for Maker. It's just using it as collateral. It's not worried about the overall system health and SUSD and all the synths and everything. It might become more problematic if SUSD was also a form of collateral, but if it was just SNX, I think you guys could be kind of agnostic to any liquidation risks or anything like that, and could probably get away with a lower collateralization ratio.
Cool. Yeah, I was mostly curious. Thanks.
Ed, do you want to jump on the mic?
Sure, yeah, I was just asking what the plan was for liquidating SUSD earns, if there's even a need for that. In comparison, we do liquidate Tether earns, and I think Tether's the only stable coin we have liquidations enabled for. For example, USDC, TUSD vaults, we don't liquidate those. It's just pegged to a fixed Oracle price of $1. So I was, I was curious what the plans would be for that.
I mean, this would just be my opinion, but I would suggest you probably should have liquidations because there isn't, like DAI, there's no direct redemption mechanism. So, the peg can fluctuate more, more widely than something that is, directly redeemable like USDC. So my suggestion would be probably yes, but yeah, that's a bit of a naive view, I guess.
And these aren't, sorry, Kevin, these, you did both of them, right? SNX and SUSD. So
Yeah,
they're not intrinsically linked, right? Like you just put them
No.
up. Okay, cool. So just making sure.
just trying to discuss them both.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes,
they're intimately
they're
connected, right? But I'm
theoretically.
just like, it's not a MIP set, pure bureaucratic brain question. Just had to route that out.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if anyone has more questions about this, but Kane, I wanted to know a little bit. I don't know if you guys are thinking, since the code is so versatile, thinking more into going into, I don't know, futures or kind of like options or things along those lines.
Yeah, so we do have binary options, but the mechanism was a bit problematic because liquidity in secondary markets for trading the options was too low, and so it kind of fizzled out. So we are working on a program to try and reintroduce a better version of binary options with better liquidity. Futures is coming. The issue with futures to date, though, has been Oracle latency and front running. So we're waiting until we get onto optimistic Ethereum before we launch that, but it's probably a few months away.
Did you mean like vanilla features, or I forgot the name of these features that settle every 8 hours or something?
No, these would be perps. They'd be perpetual futures.
Yeah, right.
Probably on like ETH, BTC, and Link initially is the plan.
And what's the issue with the front running?
So like Oracle latency on L1 with Chainlink is, fair, I mean, with any Oracle basically is fairly high. So the deviation thresholds that are set are kind of front runnable if you are watching the wider market, and so if you add leverage into that, it just becomes more problematic. So we've gotten to a point now where we have like a speed bump that forces you to kind of wait 6 minutes and get the price if the price updates within 6 minutes on a lot of these assets, which has kind of been able to curtail the front running issue. But if you add leverage and you don't increase fees or increase that time, it just creates a lot more risk. Whereas on, optimistic Ethereum, we expect to have sub-second Oracle updates through Chainlink, so it's going to be much better.
Interesting. Yeah, I have actually a friend asked me this question. He told me to relay to you, but in DeFi right now, it seems to be a lack of vanilla futures everywhere I look. So I was wondering what the issue was.
Yeah, everyone does perps. I think it's probably an issue of liquidity. I think once you have vanilla futures, then you've got sort of expiry dates that need to be rolled, and I think my guess is it'll probably come on L2. I think once we've got like robust L2 solutions, it'll come. But yeah, it's a bit challenging on L1.
Makes sense.
Also, for Mo, if I could speak to that sort of like price crash question, right? This was one of the questions that I had immediately when I was looking at Synthetix, and it took me a while to kind of get my head around it. But if you look at this, the price is down from, I think, a high of $28, along with the rest of the market's been dumping. But you can see that, right, because of that, a lot of people get scared. A lot of people kind of stop staking, and so the staking yield goes way up. Like last week, it was 20%. It's now 46%, right? So you can see this sort of like innate kind of balancing mechanism that the lower the price goes, the higher the incentive to stake goes, right? And this sort of provides an inherent price stability that I think is like really nice for a collateral token.
Yeah, makes sense. Any other questions for Kane or Kevin? You guys are shy today. I don't know if it's because we love Synthetix or we hate it. Which one is it?
Probably a bit of both, I'm guessing. Probably a bit of both.
All right. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to maybe give more information about where can people find more information about this. What are the next steps? What's coming regarding this?
Like with Synthetix or this process, or
and well, I was more referring to the application, but if you have any inside information that Kane passed to you, you can share it secretly with us. We'll just put it on the YouTube channel.
no secret insider information. I think that like all DeFi projects, right? Like it's in a lot of people, it's in everybody's interest to have kind of interconnectivity between them, and I think this boosts both ecosystems. If somebody wants to learn more about Synthetix, again, this dashboard is great. If you want to learn more about it in general, you can go to just synthetix.io, and they have a lot of great links to learn about it. You can look at the blog, you can look at the research. There's a forum. They have their own governance. There's Synthetix, I think like Kane would say, because Synthetix has taken many steps to sort of aggressively decentralize. So there's an SDAO, there's a Spartan Council, there's a PDAO, there's the various organizations that govern and like work together and sort of balance each other in a decentralized way. And I think it's sort of a similar kind of trajectory to what MakerDAO is trying to do. If anyone has really questions, also I'd say joining the Synthetix Discord is a really great way. It's that's like one of the best communities out there in DeFi, right? There's like a ton of people who are just out to like answer any questions you have, like share their knowledge, like help you learn where you can like what you can do and how you can get involved.
One one addition that I would throw out, because obviously like Maker, Synthetix is fairly complex, right? And I think that there are often edge cases and considerations that might not be immediately obvious. I think that because of the way that you're managing collateral works in Synthetix, right? Like if the price of SNX goes down, you need to burn debt, which means you need to buy SUSD, which means that in a downturn, often SUSD, DAI will, creep above the peg. I think one interesting dynamic that I would expect to see if SNX was able to be used as collateral, but the collateral ratio was lower, is you would probably see a scenario where people would be locking SNX outside of the SNX ecosystem to borrow DAI to sell it into SUSD, which would potentially create some interesting dynamics in terms of expanding the DAI supply at the time when it was needed, which I think again could be quite interesting and synergistic.
Totally. Yeah, David had a question in the chat. I don't know if.
Yeah, my question was about the nature of how decentralized SNX is, and specifically how do upgrades to the protocol get carried out, and basically how far along is the governance side of SNX?
Yeah, so we've had an SIP process for over a year now, I think maybe 18 months, and anyone can write an SIP. Anyone can propose a change to the protocol. That SIP then goes to the Spartan Council, which is a body that's directly elected. It's like a representative democracy, directly elected by token holders, and they vote on it and decide whether to implement that SIP. Once an SIP has been proposed and accepted, there's another DAO called the Protocol DAO, which is made up of core contributors. I think at the moment there's 9, and those Protocol DAO members will actually implement the change on chain.
Nice. Does that mean that that protocol DAO has special permissions to do it, like even outside of regular proposals? Like, can they do?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. At the moment, it does. The way that we're going to constrain that in the future is to give power to both the Spartan Council and directly to token holders to veto a change. So if the protocol DAO attempted to make a change that was outside of governance, either token holders, some proportion, or the Spartan Council would be able to actually block that change from being made on chain. But at the moment, no, they can make arbitrary changes. But they're all, I guess, fairly incentive aligned because they have large SNX holdings as well as being core contributors.
How did you originally choose them? Or
originally they were chosen from the foundation, but now the protocol DAO adds new members themselves. So if there's a core contributor who meets certain criteria, they're added. We're actually about to make that a public process whereby the Spartan Council actually adds a protocol DAO member when they meet specific criteria. The reason why we haven't made it fully public to date is just OPSEC. We've tried to kind of keep the protocol DAO members from being 100% public, exactly who's signing, which signing keys are owned by which people, similar to how Maker was, in the early days. I think it was kind of something to kind of protect the signers. But I think that we've gotten to a point now where it's sufficiently decentralized that the Spartan Council will be able to kind of control that process and have a bit more ownership of it.
Makes sense. Does anyone have any other questions? Should we do a last call?
Yeah. Hey.
Oh, hey, Frank.
Oh, darn it. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if someone asked this already. I kind of got distracted for a bit. So when you guys went through what we went through on Black Thursday, how did you how did you guys handle it? I mean, how was your experience? And the second part of my question is, with regards to optimism, right? The community, the maker communities right now are debating whether we should go to like XDAI or what's the other one? I can't think of the other one, but what was the thinking behind you guys choosing to go with optimism? So I guess the first part is, Black Thursday, how you guys handle that. How was your experience, I should say? Or maybe there wasn't that much leverage at that time. And the second one would be, what was the thinking behind going with optimism as opposed to, XDAI or even, I know you guys wouldn't go to Binance Smart Chain, but, I think you get
or
my
like
drift.
ZK rollups or something like that. So yeah, on the Black Thursday question, at the time, if I remember correctly, the collateralization ratio was 700%. So we didn't go anywhere near that 200% liquidation threshold. I think it was a 50% drawdown, which was kind of fine. I think there were, in fact, no liquidations even triggered on the day. There were some issues, obviously, around gas price spikes and Oracle updates getting pushed through from Chainlink, but within the Synthetix protocol itself, there were no kind of structural issues, which was lucky. I think had it been a little bit sharper of a drawdown, it could have triggered some liquidations, and we would have seen some interesting dynamics at play, but we didn't quite get there because that buffer was so high. On optimism, I've got a blog post that I wrote that kind of goes over my personal reasoning around why we did that. But I think broadly what we were looking for is something that was going to be as close to EVM compatible as possible, something that we can port over fairly easily without needing to maintain two separate code bases. And I think that's what we've gotten. So, we're actually on the pseudo mainnet now, running, basically the exact same code. There's some modifications for contract size limits and some opcodes that can't be used, but fundamentally it's the same code as running on two distinct networks simultaneously.
Got it. And with regards to risk analysis, do you guys have like a team that's a risk team that makes recommendations to the Spartan Council, the DAO, or anybody else that can change the liquidation ratios or any parameters that might hamper the overall protocol?
It's basically the Spartan Council. So there's a number of different people with different roles on the council who are responsible for reviewing any change, assessing it, and doing a risk analysis on it.
Okay, and I'm not sure if you can disclose this, but did you at all consider XDAI at one point, or was it a thing?
Yeah, we did. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a long time ago, probably not that recently, but yeah, we definitely considered XDAI or some other sidechain, like a Synthetix specific sidechain. I think the issue for us was that, those sidechains, particularly back then, were not going to be able to give you, full sort of exchange functionality that we have on L1 now. So, for us, it's not just about, transfers and sort of simple functions. Like there's a lot of complex functionality that runs on L1 that we needed to be able to run on whatever scaling solution we went with, which is why, optimistic Ethereum was the choice for us over, even things like Stockware or whatever, which would have required, significant rewrites to the code base.
So when you think about scaling Synthetix, have you also thought about maybe doing another L1? And the reason why I ask is because obviously, if you do say scale to one of the competitors or not, but if you did, have you ever thought that maybe, you're going to get more people to hold on to SNX? And if that's the case, I'm just thinking like how that would help DAI scale, right? Specifically that if you say you rolled you went over to, I don't know, let's pick Solana, since Solana is starting to make a lot of moves. If you did roll SNX to Solana, I mean, I could see, I guess, in my opinion, people minting some DAI, taking it over there. And obviously that's a win-win for both of us. Is that something that you guys have been approached? I mean, I don't know if you can talk about it, but something you thought about or looked into?
Yes. Yeah. So I think one thing that it's worth pointing out is that I don't have any control anymore in any way of the project, other than participating in the Spartan Council governance process. So my personal view is probably fairly ETH centric. You know, we've explored a number of other chains. You know, again, we've been around for a long time as well as Maker, right? Not quite as long, but you know, going back to 2017, and you know, we looked at EOS. We've looked at, you know, a lot of different chains, and I think the end result for us is that there's nothing currently that has the tooling and infrastructure and community that Ethereum has. And so, you know, my big focus personally is on trying to generate social coordination around moving to optimistic Ethereum, because I think that that process of running some stuff on L1, some stuff on Optimism is going to be the optimal path for us over the next 12 to 18 months, rather than trying to shift on to another L1. I think the fragmentation that would create would be very problematic for DeFi. You know, Maker, us, the lending protocols, all of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it would be better if someone, you know, would just mint it here, and then if these guys can wrap it over there, then that's up to them.
Great.
But turning back the clock, and I've been following Synthetix for, I don't know, maybe during the dog days when, you know, it was cold and nobody wanted to talk about any of this stuff. I remember you had a podcast one time, Kane. I think it was with Pat Shonexy, something like that. I can't even pronounce his name. And there was you guys had an attack back then at the early stages where you had a guy who I guess was holding ransom, and you got over that. You've done such a great job, right, to get the protocol to where it's at right now. And when I say you, I don't mean you. I mean you specifically, but the entire Synthetix community. But can you take us back to what happened at that time? I'm sorry for bringing up bad memories, but I do remember that, and it was that's when I first heard about you guys, and it was like, you know, the way you guys overcame that to get to where you at today was pretty impressive, in my opinion.
Yeah, appreciate that. I think the main thing was it was an Oracle attack. You know, we were running our own proprietary Oracle at the time, and you know, that was a big driver for us to migrate to Chainlink and you know, hand off the Oracle problem to another project, which, you know, we're very happy. It's been working well since then. I think you know, alongside that, obviously we've worked to really improve the governance process and decentralize it. You know, back then there was still a foundation. It was still very centralized and hierarchical. I was, you know, I guess notionally in charge of things. But you know, since then we've really tried to kind of distribute the ownership of the protocol, both around governance and you know, the actual network itself, as widely as possible. And so, you know, we now have like Maker, you know, various experts and specialists in, you know, specific aspects of the protocol that have a far deeper understanding, you know, than some of the core contributors. And I think that's just a healthy process that you kind of have to go through, and that's what has allowed us to kind of get to this point. You know, back from, you know, kind of going from there when it was a small team of, you know, 10 people or whatever to, you know, today.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys considered it, or if this is a, I don't know, sensitive topic at all, but why not Maker oracles?
Yeah, it's not really a sensitive topic. I think when we switched to Chainlink, Maker was an option, but the latency of the oracles was even longer than Chainlink. You know, I think the oracles were designed for a very specific Maker-centric purpose, and because of the way that the debt pool works and the way that we need, you know, fairly low latency Oracle updates, I just don't think it was going to be viable in the same way that like our liquidation process would not be viable for Maker, right? Like this 3-day window. I think there's just some idiosyncratic things that were, you know, designed specifically for those systems that just weren't really compatible.
Thanks. Any other questions for Kane or Kevin?
Yeah, is Chainlink charging Synthetix governance for their oracles, or
They are, yeah.
they are?
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a little the oracle thing's a bit out of my depth, but I think you covered it quite well. It's just Maker's oracles are pretty bespoke for Maker purposes, so figuring out that overlap would be good. I think you guys probably already answered that in the MIP6 though.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
I think my sense is that it's like the compound oracles as well, right? Like Chainlink, even realistically, Chainlink made a number of changes for us specifically for Synthetix, in those early days that I think have kind of pushed them in a certain direction. So I think there's room for specific implementations of of oracles, but from our perspective, we wanted to get it outside the protocol. That was the #1 priority, and then have something that was going to be as robust as possible, which I think has been kind of demonstrated. We're in a pretty good place now.
Makes sense. All right, guys, I feel the energy low. We're losing steam, so let's do a last call for questions.
Well, it's just that Nick isn't here to dive into the deep technical stuff, which we'll get to later. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll have ideas about how to make sure there's enough feeds and everything. We'll probably come up with a solution that makes a lot of sense.
Maybe it's a good thing that Nick is not here then.
Don't say that.
All right, so Kane, are you on Twitter, or where can people follow you or ask you questions?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'll drop it into the chat, and then obviously on Discord as well. But yeah, you can ping me on Twitter, Telegram, same thing. So yeah, I'm pretty easy to find.
Sounds good. We'll put it in the forum post. Kevin, how about you? Since you've been driving the
Yeah, I would just say closing thoughts is that when I encountered the Synthetix project, I said, wow, this is such a cool idea, but I have like a whole lot of unanswered questions about how this is going to work. And like, there's a lot of concerns and risks. And I saw some like Reddit FUD post about how, Synthetix is like trash. And I went to like one of the first Synthetix like community calls, and I asked them, and Kane responded and he told me, and I was like, I get it. And it's like, it's like as many questions as you have, like people have already thought about them and they have answers. And there's like a deep, rich community of like people who are dedicated to answering your questions. And there's like plenty of like documented, well thought through explanations on the blog. And yeah, like Frank mentioned, the issue back then with the price oracle was a big moment of confidence where I really kind of got it, where like before things I thought might be risks ended up being like risk mitigation, right? And at the end of the day, the concept is really sound, and the system so far has shown to be able to prop itself up even in extremely adversarial conditions. And yeah.
It's good. Glad to see that there's so much passion for the protocol. All right. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming. It was really great having you. Thanks again, Kane, for
thanks for having me.
showing up.
Appreciate it.
And we'll see you next week. We'll actually have the growth core unit explaining what they're going to be doing. So we're switching a little bit from collateral to more internal politics, where we can ask how they plan to grow our community more. So see you guys next week at 6 p.m. UTC. Have a nice one.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.